Klay Thompson, in 5 of his 11 full seasons, has shot 41% or less the first month of the season. Last season, he shot 35% for the first month of the season. He's a career 46% shooter. Now, it may not matter to a lot of people because of what it looks like. Sure, he's getting a lot older. He's not the same defender. But listen to this back and forth between Klay Thompson and Tim Kawakami. He hit my timeline yesterday and was like, wow. And the image of it was like, wow. And you see the body language. So here's the back and forth with TK and Klay Thompson from yesterday's shoot-around.
Kirk talks a lot about believing in his guys, especially the starting lineup. Won championship not too long ago. Having patience, letting guys kind of, find their game. How aware are you of that kind of patience, and how much do you value it?
What do you want me to bench me?
No. It's like that's
bench Wiggs.
I don't think I said that.
Okay. I mean, you can suggest it. It's fine. But I mean, thanks, Steve. I guess. Like, I don't know. Sometimes you earn these things like patience and time to find yourself. And I think history is on our side when it comes to that stuff.
You say that. Have you heard people say that, or?
No, I don't care what people say. Like, they don't do what we do. They can't do what they do. That's why they talk. Why would I? Like, come on. I don't care what people say. At this point in my life. Next question.
Now let's go to Tim Kawakami because, by just reading his body language, it's obvious Klay does care. And I know Klay cares what people says. I know that's a fact. Klay Thompson, he wears his emotions on the sleeve. It is a contract year. He does get in his own head. And I don't think Klay handled that very well. And I'm one of the biggest Klay fans out here. Let's bring in Tim Kawakami, who was there, obviously asked a question, had the back and forth. And Tim Kawakami didn't say, hey, come off the bench. He just talked about sacrifices. So, TK, good morning to you. And we'll get into some Niners and Eagles and what this game means for both teams, whether or not it's a legacy game, which I don't believe it is. But Klay Thompson, what's your big takeaway? And I read your column, but I want you to tell the audience what your big takeaway was from Klay Thompson in the back and forth yesterday.
Yeah, he's clearly feeling it. There's no question. He didn't like the question. I think I clearly went into it thinking I'm writing about how the Warriors need to have patience and have had patience and need to stick with the main guys. This is what they need to do. That's why I asked the question to see what he thought about that. And I don't think it was a trap question. I don't think it was necessarily a provocative question, unless you're, a great player, a future Hall of Famer who's feeling a little cornered right now, who's feeling, is not happy with the way he's played. It hasn't been great, but feels like it's still in there, and I agree with him. That was kind of the point, but he can read into it however he wants to. We have a long history, Klay and I, mostly good, sometimes maybe not good, and this is probably a period where it's not good, and maybe he's been listening to the podcast. I'm trying to think, where have I ever said that he possibly could be losing minutes? It's on the podcast, so great. Kill me for the podcast, that's fine. I think he should start. I think he needs to start. I think he needs to close. I think he's feeling it. You're right. He is hearing things, or maybe, his friends are sending him clips. We know how that works. But that's also what a champion does, right? This is kind of lion and winner. Like, yeah, I'm going to fight this until the last breath I got. And we saw some of that yesterday. I got it. That's fine. Again, we're fine. But it's a little bit of, illustration of this is how the great ones fight it. Like, when it's not going great, when they're feeling like people are down on them, this is what it feels like. And I got no issue with that. It's just interesting. I thought it was illustrative. I didn't try for that moment. There's ways to get that moment, to do it a little more pointed than I did. I wasn't going to write anything like bench Klay. I have never thought that or said that. Yeah. But the fact that he went there immediately in like half a second, I think it's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I also think that, like, whether it's directed entirely at you or you were just the vehicle in front of him to where he could, voice his frustrations or show some level of frustration, like, I don't think you were the intended person on that one. And I think that Coach Kerr even referenced it, I think 2 or 3 days prior, saying that, like, these guys have earned the equity of patience. And so, like, the coach is kind of backing him in that situation. I mean, it feels like they need Wiggins and Klay. If they want to go anywhere, they need those guys to be big parts of it.
Yeah, that's been, I think, the whole season has been. Steph has been incredible. Chris Paul has been excellent, second best player on the team. They still need Klay and Wiggins, and they don't have replacements for them. I mean, we can all think about Kuminga and Moody however we want to. They're not replacing what Klay and Wiggins could give them. Who knows if they're going to give it to them? That's up in the air. I think Wiggins has looked much better lately. Klay has had some decent games lately. They got to put it together for a run here, or else they're a mediocre team, no matter how great Steph is. You know, he's going up against Oklahoma City. You saw, Steph's really good, and he needs more than that. And we'll see with Draymond coming back. But this is where they are, and this is what they bet on. It's not anything where they're like shocked. Oh my God, we're counting on Klay and Wiggins. No, this is what the bet was. They re-signed Draymond in the offseason. The whole inclination was to surround Steph with what's best for him. I can't disagree with that. There's no way that's a wrong decision. You go with what's best for Klay, and best for Steph, and Klay and Wiggins are part of that. If they're not playing well, there's no way to salvage this. There's no way to go, okay, Moody and Kuminga and Podziemski are going to be the same. You might have to play them more. And I think this is where Klay gets mad at me for saying this. But his minutes are going down, and you can't argue. You look at the stats, you can't say this should go up.
Right.
But those guys aren't as good as what Klay could be. They aren't as good as Klay was last season. But then you just need it from Klay. Then you just need to see it from Klay, and it hasn't happened. It could happen. I think it's going to happen. But in this moment, he can be frustrated about it, and people can say he needs to do it. I think both sides are fair.
In his last 4 games, Klay Thompson giving you over 18.5 points per game, shooting only 40% from the floor, but at 44.7% from the three-point line. So I think he is showing glimpses of breaking out of whatever slump. And we know he's a notorious slow shooter. 5 of his first 11 seasons, 11 full seasons, he shot 41% or less the first month of the season. Last season, he shot 35%. He's a career 46% shooter. He went on a crazy spurt in January and the month of March, but 2 of his best offensive months in his career. But it does feel different this time, Tim, because the movement doesn't seem like it's there. Defensively, he is a shell of himself from what he was pre-injuries. So if that's the case, and if a hypothetical does happen where he does come off the bench, it almost feels like he needs to play with a guy like CP3 and Sarge because he needs spacing. And that's where the starting lineup with Draymond Green and Kevon Looney, it doesn't benefit Klay Thompson because they compromise the court, TK.
You are getting into the column I was going to write yesterday.
Wow, great minds think alike.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the numbers. His numbers with Steph are not good.
Yeah.
They're just not. And that starting lineup has been not good. Best starting lineup in the NBA, as we've said a million times last season, has been one of the worst this season. Now, they're still early, but like you look at it, Klay's numbers with CP3 are better. The point is, and I was talking to Kerr about this yesterday, was like CP3 helps the starting lineup and he helps the second unit. So you have to balance that. Where do you put him? I think the decision's been made for now to put him with the second unit and really try to get that believe in the first unit. See, now you're getting into kind of what I was asking Klay. You believe in the first unit because you need CP3 to help the second unit.
Right.
That's the larger picture. Klay did not like some of the presumptions made in that. That's fine. But, yeah, it's like I think more Klay with the second unit with CP3 probably could be where this is headed. Maybe more Saric with the first unit. You just look at the spacing issues. I just think of those 2 Oklahoma City games were so clarifying to me that length of that team, the speed and the athleticism of that team really made it hard for that first unit with Looney. And no, Draymond was not there, but Looney and some of the other. They need movement. They need guys who challenge them a little bit. Now, I don't know if the Warriors really have them, but you can try to look at Kuminga, you can look at Podziemski, you can look at Moody in those roles. And I think CP3 setting up Klay and Moody maybe on that second unit is a little bit makes more sense to me at this point. Maybe, and it certainly makes sense on the numbers. Klay could go crazy, and it doesn't matter what unit he's on, right? It's never mattered. He's had second unit minutes during the dynasty, and that's where he went crazy because he can kind of be the shot taker. I think that's where this is headed. Again, that was kind of my mid-column I was ready to write yesterday with no idea it was going to lead to this, that you kind of maybe juggle the minutes a little bit, juggle the rotations, and maybe CP3 with Klay is where you want to end up. Might end up that way anyway, but I got myself a whole other column yesterday by trying to write the other one. It happens like that.
Yeah, like there's the whole Klay and Wiggins aspect, and then there's the Draymond Green aspect coming back to the team after a 5-game absence. His defiance, his frustration with, I guess, his resume of stuff affecting the suspension. Where do you come down on Draymond's comments?
Yeah, I mean, I think I wasn't there, so I just by judging by what I've seen, how I know him, I think this is Draymond. He's not going to apologize for anything. Like he probably gets other than punching his teammate. He is who he is. He acts how he acts. The stuff's going to happen. The reaction is going to be the reaction. I do think it's interesting that I think this is more about, okay, if I do this again towards the playoff, I want them to hear me saying this now because he got hit hard. That playoff suspension last year was huge, and I thought it was a bigger deal just because of the playoffs, because he'd already got thrown out of Game 2 of the Kings series, and so he gets suspended for Game 3. It did feel like a little double jeopardy. I think this is more about the bigger picture than maybe this suspension. Nobody on the team seriously had a problem with 5 games for grabbing Rudy Gobert, seeking him out. I think that was the problem. It's like he sought him out. He wasn't like just in the middle of a tussle and then they grabbed the guy next to him. He ran, 8 steps to make sure he grabbed Rudy Gobert. So Klay had his hand on Klay Thompson, and that's part of this, but that was kind of just in the scrum. 5 games was what Draymond should have got for that. My thing with Draymond also is like, this is going to happen. It's like, is anybody shocked that this happened? Draymond does this stuff. It's the heat of the emotion. This is who he is. At some point, there's going to be a calculation that he's not valuable enough to go through this. He is on the value side of that right now. It's there will be a sliding scale. This players don't like to hear that. Fans don't like to hear that. It's going to happen. I thought it might have happened a while ago, but he's played so well, as he's heading towards his middle 30s, that it's still on the value side. This is who he is. This is how he gets himself revved up. This is how he gets his team revved up. And I say this a million times. This is what Steph Curry wants. This is the teammates, Klay and Draymond, as we just put them both into this category. He wants them on the court with him, and that's pretty important. And he feels he's at his best when he's with those guys. Some of this might prove to be wrong eventually. Right. But right now, they're the guys that can maximize what Steph wants to be and who he can be, the value he has, and you go with it. But Draymond does this. He did this in the NBA Finals, right? So I'm not – and after he did it in the conference finals, right? That was the Steven Adams thing.
In the first round against Beasley. In the first round against the Houston Rockets. I mean, This is what he does.
This is who he is.
This is what he does.
So I'm not shocked by it. I understand the reaction to it. I understand the 5-game suspension. I understand the whole thing. This is who he is. The Warriors went into him for 4 more years. Like, they made that decision. They could have moved on from him. They did not. This is what they've got. This is what they're playing with. And their sense is that he's not going to do this again this season. He might do it again next season. But in their minds, this was his one. This is his mulligan, as Bob Myers, who's no longer there, but probably has as great as insight as anybody on this told me. And he just used it early this season. He just can't do it again this season.
No, he can't. He can't. They need him on the floor. By the way, TK Show, part of the Odyssey Network now. You're part of your family now, really? TK, whether you like it or not.
Family. Hey, you know what?
Congratulations.
You guys are family. I've always felt that. I've been in your house. Well, actually, your studio, but I've been in there. I consider myself part of the Odyssey family for a while, but now it's official, and I'm happy to be here.
You and Shasky, first cousins. Who would have known? Listen. With the Warriors, and look, they're out of the gates here. They're still out of the gates, obviously, with Draymond on a 5-game suspension. How long do you think Joe Lacob and Mike Dunleavy and Kirk Lacob will give this roster to play it out before having to make some tough decisions? And where I'm going here is Kuminga and Moody. We're all expecting them to take the 3rd-year leap, and there's been some inconsistencies, especially with Jonathan Kuminga. And he may get his minutes cut now with Draymond Green back. How does this look like? What does this look like in a month or two? And when do you think the Warriors will be pressed to make some major moves here if they don't start playing consistent basketball?
Yeah, it depends, I think, on what we're looking at. Is it 12 and 20, or is it 15 and 14? I think 15 and 14 in the kind of bottled up Western Conference where you're not going to be too far out. You probably they're in 10th and they're 3 games out of the 3 seed. So Like, if it stays like that, I don't see any big dramatic moves. I don't know that what's really available. Would they like to trade for Pascal Siakam or OG Anunoby? Yes, but I just don't know that trade is there. CP is the guy that you would trade for it, and he's so like, you're going to trade him, you're going to lose value.
Yeah,
right?
I don't know if you can.
He's been good.
Yeah. Like they're kind of their move was the Jordan Poole move. That was the move. Can you package Kuminga and Moody and someone else? I guess you theoretically could, but I don't know what that trade is. Would they take Alex Caruso? Yes, in a heartbeat, but I don't think they're getting him. So just being practical about it, I don't know what the move is. Unless if they're 12-20, they lose another 7 games, and it's feeling terrible, they will make a move. That's who they are. I don't know what it is. It might not be a great one, but this thing looks bad. They're not going to let it continue to be bad. I don't foresee what it could be, but there will be something. I don't think it's going to be like that. I think they're going to be at worst, right about where they are now. Probably going to be a little bit better because the schedule has been hard. It continues to be a little bit hard. Then it's going to ease up a little bit. I just maybe a tweak here or there, maybe a move. I just don't see them pressing the button on this because they made their decision in the offseason. They gave Draymond a 4-year deal. They traded a 24-year-old Jordan Poole for a 38-year-old Chris Paul. This is what they got. And you start making some trades, you're going to trade from your depth, which they do love. They like that they have all these good players. And that, the rotation is a little tough decisions to make. It wasn't tough to make them last year, right? I mean, this year it's tougher. And I don't think you start trading from that, then where are you, right? So there could be something out there. I imagine they're looking at everything. We know the names. I don't know what's available. I mean, again, Alex Caruso, OG Anunoby, Pascal Siakam, those are the kinds of players that would really help this team, but it would take Chris Paul and others to do it, and that I don't know that makes them better.
Yeah.
These are tough. This is a tough spot they're in, but they put themselves in it, and you know why? Because Steph Curry's worth it. You put the people around Steph Curry that make him the best. He's played great this season. Can he get them to 47 wins, 48 wins? I still think he can. I think that's there. As long as that possibility is there and what they're getting from the main guys is what they're expecting or, within some margin, I think they're going to stay with it. I just don't see the big trade. They've made these decisions. And the other one is they could trade Wiggins, I guess, but they signed him for less last season because he wanted to stay. It's not great to trade somebody after you've given him less to stay because he wanted to be on your team. I know at some point that goes away, but there's bad faith in that because then you want someone else to do that? No, he's not going to take less. Why would Klay take less, let's say, if you're moving Wiggins after he took less just to stay with you guys? I don't see them moving Wiggins for a while, and I don't know that they're going to get value for him. So then you just kind of go through all that. I don't know what moves out there. This is kind of what they got.
All right, so, I wonder what Steph Curry thinks, but let's transition to the Niners before you get on out of here, TK, and we appreciate all the perspective on the Warriors. I mean, this one feels like a 1990s matchup between the Niners and the Cowboys in terms of, it's not the end-all, be-all because we all agree they're going to meet in the playoffs, or at least we assume they're going to meet in the playoffs. This feels like a huge test for the Niners. Can you win in Philly? Can you win in maybe adverse weather conditions? Can Brock Purdy look good against this defensive line? Can their offense look good against this? How are you going to stop the weapons for Philadelphia? How are you going to stop Jalen Hurts? What's the storyline you think is the most sexy heading into this game?
Can the 49ers, we know they're a physical team, but I think the Eagles were more physical in the NFC Championship. Now, obviously, the quarterback went out, and that changed a lot of dynamic, but that defensive line, that pass rush, obviously put Purdy out of the game, put Josh Johnson out of the game because they're good, because they keep coming, because they take over games. We know the 49ers front can do that too. I'm just thinking, can the 49ers offensive line hold up? Can they run the ball to slow everything down, get themselves, the advantage in the physical game on offense, they want to, and then when they throw the ball, can they keep those guys off of Brock Purdy? I think if they can, they can win a game. I don't know that they can. Colton McKivitz lined up against Hassan Reddick might not be a great matchup. It might be okay. We'll see, but and that's not the only guy they got. They just come at you in waves like the 49ers do. probably the best two defensive lines in total in the league. I want to see how the 49ers hold up with that because, they didn't look great against Cleveland. And Cleveland's really good. Myles Garrett was all over them, and we saw the results. Can the 49ers offensive line, can that right side of the offensive line, I think even more particularly because I think we're all pretty sure Trent Williams is going to do fine.
Right.
And out of nowhere, Aaron Banks has turned into a pretty good player at left guard. So can that right side hold up? Can the 49ers feel that they have a, physical, at least a stymie on that side, and then let their defensive line kind of take over? Because we know the Eagles' offensive line is really good, right? We know that. That's their defensive line and their offensive line are the heart of that team. Well, the quarterback's pretty good too. But the 49ers, I think they can bet on that defensive line. Let's see where their offensive line is in a huge moment against a defensive line that put two of their quarterbacks out the last time they played. That's what I'm looking at.
All right, should be fascinating here. Fascinating. If you had an MVP vote right now, 30 seconds or less, TK, MVP vote right now, you voting for Brock Purdy or you voting for Christian McCaffrey?
Of the team, I'm saying McCaffrey still. I mean, listen, I'm a Purdy guy. I write it almost every week. He's fantastic. I think Christian McCaffrey is the MVP of that team, though.
Yeah,
It's so important to everything they do.
Be careful. Be careful. You may have to block some people on Twitter because I said that yesterday and I got slandered through the wall. I got to walk on the eggshells when I talk about Brock Purdy. Even though I said Brock Purdy early in the season reminds me of a young Tom Brady. I say McCaffrey's MVP, and it's all bonds. Hey, you're a Brock Purdy hater, so be careful on Twitter. You know how to use a block button. TK, thanks for the time today.
You got it, guys. Anytime.
All
See
right.
you, TK.
Tim Kawakami, part of the Odyssey Network family now.
I know.
Part of the family.
Bunch of journalists typing it up. You, me, him.
You like journalists now, huh?
Well, I'm
Gotta
gonna
respect the
pretend
crowd.